My name is Roger Moeller. I've been a long-time woodworker and until recently have never found an easy way to break apart sheet goods such as plywood and MDF to final project size in an easy, safe, and inexpensive manner while working all alone. This video and the two accompanying videos are going to cover doing this right off the back end of the truck with the Festool TS55 plunge cut saw and the guide system along with the recently announced parallel guide and extension accessories. A very unique part of this video is the sacrificial table which has been developed by me to support the work while cutting. I am pleased to share the safety aspects of this video with fellow woodworkers as I have suffered back problems my entire life and have to be very careful lifting. I also had the beginnings of a rotator cuff injury while moving some MDF. This is a horrible injury and the recovery process is no fun. Join me as we see how to accurately break up sheet goods using Festool and the new parallel guide accessories. These accessories make the guide rail an entirely new class of tool that you have never seen before. Other things that I've used in the past that I've been totally unpleased with have been things like any kind of bar guide rail that clamps or tries to square or whatever the case may be. This particular one has rubber strips on the back that do stay down and stay in place. I've also got a table saw that's got a slider table on it. Problem there is getting the material to the work. I've also got a standing panel saw that cost around $3,500. And the problem there also is A, getting the work over to it. B, I don't like it when you're making horizontal cuts. Gravity wants to bind the pieces together. And C is the quality of cut, chip out, etc. Here we've overcome all those efforts with various features of the Festool TS55 saw. I'm not here really today to talk about all those features, but rather I want to talk about the workflow and handling these large panels, and in particular this table. This little essay here, video essay, is as much about the table as anything else. And we're going to have two segments with this video, the first of which will only gently cover the newly released parallel guides, and then the second segment will go into the parallel guides much more in depth. Let's look at the table first. This is my second generation table. It measures 3 feet across by 7 feet long. I'm very pleased with those dimensions. 4x8 sheets can overhang in all directions. You still got clamping space if you need to clamp, etc. The table is built out of 3/4 inch plywood. There's about a sheet of plywood in it. Web comb construction, or torsion box construction if you will, is a cross lap kind of joint throughout the middle here, and those have been put together with polyurethane glue, the Gorilla Glue product, and allowed to foam out. So they give a lot of structure to it. At the ends over here where it butts in, I've just used screws to put that together. The legs fold. The trick to the table standing upright and the legs folding is a very slight bevel on this board right here that I am pointing to. You'll notice the construction of the legs pretty straightforward. I am going to update this to some sort of a 2x4 leg for a little bit more strength. I am really hesitant to make it too strong because all of a sudden it becomes tempting to use it as a scaffold, and that isn't my intention at all. Okay, as far as parallel edge guides are concerned, the new attachment here, if you would, these two rails that I'm looking at here, what's important about them is we want to make a cut. I'm going to take this 53-inch long board. I'm going to make some approximate 12-inch cuts, just a hair under 12-inch out of it. In order to do that, I'm going to set this particular adjustment right here that we're really zooming in on to 300 millimeters. That's just slightly less than 12 inches, and that's going to be 300 millimeters from this point. And you'll notice this little point right here is it's been indexed or ground in. So from right here to the edge of the splinter guard is 300 millimeter. The MDF comes from the factory. It does come oversized, 49 by 97 inches, and they leave that trimming pretty rough. This project's going to be painted, so I want to cut it smooth so it paints up real nice and it'll give me a nice edge. I've already put a 1/4 inch marking on this. Okay, just a couple words about the saw and the guide. You'll notice it is plunge cut. I push a release. I've got it set to cut the width of the material, or thickness of the material, plus the thickness of the aluminum guide. There is a riving knife at the back end of it. There's a splinter guard here to help with splinters on the right side of the blade. There is a foam rubber splinter guard along the side of the guide that avoids splinters there. There's lots of other sources of information on this particular saw. Okay, I'm completed my cut. I'm going to check it for squareness here. You'll notice I use this huge square. It's called the A square, just plain old A-S-Q-U-A-R-E. Search for it on Google. Now I'll be setting up, bringing in the parallel edge guide to do the 12-inch cut off this 53-inch width. Remember, the sole purpose of this parallel guide in setting it at 300 millimeters here, and that's close enough to my 12-inch, just a little bit under it, is to establish a reference point where my finger is to the cut line up here at the front of the guide. On the guides, I have went ahead and got my 9-foot guide out. If you're going to be serious about doing this kind of work, you need this 9-foot guide, and you also need the 55-inch guide I was using previously. Now, piece is only 53, why did I get the longer one when I had a 55-inch guide? Well, it takes a little space for this apparatus to hang out. Remember, this apparatus is not a squaring apparatus, it's simply a parallel edge guide to do repetitive cuts. Very important to understand. There's nothing squared about it. Heck, we don't even have the guide tight against the wood piece here. We just need to make sure it straddles it, that the piece can come down in between it. In fact, before I ever set up, when I know I'm doing 53 inches, before I ever get the wood piece in here, I take these guides and set them up to be like 54 inches across. You'll notice that with this cutting table, and that's what this video is primarily about, is this cutting table, when my cut is made, the pieces are just going to lie resting very nicely. They're not going to fall to the ground. I don't have to be balancing sawhorses or anything like that. I'm going to get in between here. I've got the saw set not quite 1 inch to cover the thickness of the material, the thickness of the guide. Remember, this edging here is sacrificial. There's all kinds of cuts into it. I don't care that I nick into it. Strictly sacrificial. Notice that everything is still lying perfectly flat. Take a quick peek and see what the measurement is right where I want to be. 11 13/16. And, most importantly, 11 13/16. I'm going to set the parallel guides in place. Remember, this point right here and this point over here. All I need to do, set it on the rail, start her up. And we'll do one last piece here. Notice we're getting down to a thinner cut. And again, the geometry of this is such. This particular set of rail guides can cut out to about 26 inches. Now you might say, well, gee, what if I want to cut a 38-inch piece? Well, that's simple. Just flip the process around. 48 inches minus 38 is 10. Cut off a 10-inch piece, and what remains is 38. So, excellent width to have it out here at 26 inches. If you need to cut underneath about 7.5 inches, you need to use the extensions to this. Point on point? Yes. And we're done. Remember that for a little bit of extra support, if you had like a 12-foot long piece of corian or countertopping of some sort, you could use some clamps out at the end to become legs to help support the material. Well, thank you. I'm sure you can see here we have a very nice, efficient system of taking a nasty job of cutting 4x8 sheet goods down to size, getting them to where they don't weigh so much, not hurting yourself while you're moving them. With that, my name is Roger Moeller. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.